So there's always been this kind of tug of war between what an artist can do that tech can't. The ones that are most successful embrace that tech and just make their skill or what they want to say even more profound.
Technology shifts technique.
Correct, without a doubt.
Today, I'm joined by co-host Cory Grossman, who has previously interviewed on The Bomb, and we'll be having a discussion with Joey Jones. Joey comes from over 20 years of experience as a creative director, designer, and is currently vice president and executive creative director at Candy Digital, a Web3 design agency that currently has several joint non-fungible token NFT projects with the MLB, NFL, NASCAR, and Getty Images. Our conversation unpacks the initial challenges of the broad decentralized Web3 marketplace and its adoption, the importance and opportunities in the developing metaverse, and the exclusivity value of digital art, collectibles, and long-term goals to make sure the space becomes more viable. We'll also be discussing the recent breakthroughs in augmented reality, its gamification, and what the future has in store for its soon-to-be widespread applications. Here's our conversation. We live in a time where design and technology touch every aspect of our lives. But where did it all come from? Who designed it? How was it built and brought to market? What will it look like in a year, 2 years, 100 years? From the phones and smartwatches that help us in our day-to-day to the cutting-edge spaceships and 3D printers that are leading us into the future, modern design is constantly shaping the way we work, communicate, problem solve, and play. And every new design, big or small, starts with an idea and a bill of materials. I'm Majenta Strongheart, and this is The Bomb, where we talk to leading innovators in the tech world and celebrate the transformational power of design. I think a natural start is kind of your background and how you got into creative directing.
Sure.
So maybe we can start there. Does that sound good to you?
Oh, that sounds great.
Okay.
Jones, it's very nice to have you here.
Yeah,
thank you.
Welcome to The Bomb.
Great to be here. It's great
Thank
to be
you
here.
for doing this.
So how I started. Originally I was in architecture and fortunate enough to go to a school that was developing CAD software as well. So at Ohio State, they're inventing a program called FormZ, which was one of the first true ways for architects, for designers to model a space and then render it out. It scared the heck out of traditional 2D guys, but it became really for me a place where I could quickly get some results instead of spending nights and nights modeling a physical model.
Mm-hmm.
I think those if I look back, that was probably the first epiphany where there was always going to have to be a digital and a physical side at creating something, whether it was architecture or story or product or a car. And so I was fortunate enough to get an internship with one of my heroes, Tom Main at Morphosis, and worked for him and did an internship for 3 months, doing FormZ for him, and got a a close, upfront, candid, unflinching look at what it means to be a star architect. An architect at that star caliber level. And this was before he won the Pritzker, so he was obviously like a star, but hadn't reached the caliber he is today. And after 3 months, realized, I don't know if being an architect is for me. Not necessarily. I loved it. I just didn't know. I didn't think I could wait till I was 50 in order to get to the level where he was at.
I had the same feeling when I did architecture in high school, where I was like, I want to do like Frank Gehry buildings, but I'm not going to get to do that for like 40 years. And that doesn't sound fun, doing all the steps before that.
You're absolutely right. And so that impatience made it easy for me to convert to animation. As soon as I started having a camera fly through a space and have an inkling of a story, I was then hooked and took a step away from architecture, went back to grad school, and studied animation, film, and design.
So your love of animation, the seeds of that were basically software related to architecture?
Well, I think if I look back, I was always interested in story. I was always interested in animation. Never thought I could make a living doing it, if I had to be honest. This is me growing up in the middle of Ohio and not really seeing the opportunities that, that are there, right? If you're living in Los Angeles, you can clearly see people making a living doing animation.
Can you walk us through what the interface was like with FormZ? I'm trying to imagine, like, at that time, what were early, CAD interfaces like?
So, believe it or not,
There was a big wheel and you had to crank it.
Were you inputting coordinates?
Close. I mean, it was very rudimentary. But the UI was, I mean, this is a long time ago. This is 30 years ago. So, it was good enough for you to build architecture. And if you used it enough, you got really fast at it. And with architecture, that is, for the most part, platonic and faceted and not soft surface. FormZ and the computer abilities at that point were perfect. It was a lot easier to make a right angle than it was to make a curve. Organic, soft surfed. Yeah. But back to your question, Cory, I don't think it was necessarily software that led me into animation. I think what it was coming out here, working for Tom Main, and actually seeing people, particularly in the game space at that point, game industry, making a good living doing animation. It was that happenstance of being out here, having the sort of confidence to see that was like, well, darn, do I want to spend the next, 20-ish, 30 years building up to a point where Tom Main was at, or I can kind of jump in real quickly and what's, for better or for worse, digital gives you fairly fast results, really fast results in some cases. The older I get, the more I realize that there's still a significant amount of patience with digital as well if you want to get to that caliber.
Because a feature film, an animated feature film, probably takes more time than live action, right?
Correct. It does, without a doubt. It's relative. I'm talking about, I'm still, the projects, so I'm not in feature film. At one point I was. Nowadays, the length of my projects are, 3 months to maybe 6 months. And to an architect, that's a blink of an eye, right? To me, it does require a bit of patience to do something that may at the end of the day last 10 seconds, but you spent 6 months making those 10 seconds with a team of, a dozen or so people. Yeah. So out of grad school, I did a short film that did really well, won a bunch of awards, and myself and a few of the guys that worked on the film started a company right out of school. And did that for 12 years. And we built a team of about 30 some odd, a team of women and men, and did mostly marketing. Marketing paid the bills. And at night, we would try to come up with stories to pitch around town. And so that was a real eye-opener into how Hollywood works and the intersection of commerce and design and ambition and
dreams and reality.
Dreams and handshake. So I saw a lot how hard that is. Like if you think about, I remember, I'll never forget in school at Ohio State, I had a professor named Mark Robbins, ended up becoming the director of the NEA. We were bagging on some building, and his point, I'll never forget it, was you can criticize that building, but you also have to remember how much of a feat it is just to get something made. Just to get that building done is a feat in itself, and that architect should be congratulated. And it stuck with me. And then you start to realize, even like with a film, trying to get a film made, how freaking hard that is. And so going through that, I quickly realized that screenwriting was going to be another full commitment and probably going to take me many years to get to a point where I could feel comfortable. And before I knew it, 12 years had passed, and we built up a company that did, like I said, a lot of gaming and marketing, and game marketing, and a lot of theatrical marketing as well. And then fell into advertising fully and became a creative director in advertising, doing a lot of campaigns for Microsoft Xbox, and worked on the Oculus headset a bunch. Did some work in narrative as it pertains to trying to sell a game, and that was a great fun ride. And now I find myself in the world of NFTs.
I remember he called me up and said, "Hey, watch the Super Bowl because I have a commercial during the Super Bowl," which I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Joey.
That is pretty
That's
cool.
something.
Yeah, that is something. I mean, the whole irony in that is over the, I don't know, 300, 400 commercials that I've worked on and helped direct and what have you. If I had to pick one that I would want to be on the Super Bowl, that would be in probably the bottom 10. I mean, it was something that a game company called us up at the last second, and they got a deal for the 15-second spot and needed something in a couple of months, and we pulled it off.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was cool. It was cool to see it, for 15 seconds.
Yeah,
on the
TV, the creme de la creme, the opportunity to showcase, commercial work for sure.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
So that's the journey. Tell us, what do you do now?
So I work for a company called Candy Digital. What we do essentially is produce digital collectibles that reinvents what fandom is. So our partnerships are with Major League Baseball, MLB, with NASCAR, with WWE, with Netflix, and we recently announced with Getty Images.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah. So it runs the gamut of sports and entertainment and culture.
Did you collect baseball cards as a kid?
I did, actually. Yeah, I wasn't a huge baseball player, but with sports, there is this maybe not odd. I think a lot of people can relate. You get an experience of going to a baseball stadium as a kid and instantly becoming a fan and finding an identity with that team, and that becomes part of your persona, and you become attached to that, and you just collect that team. So my uncle took me to a Red Sox game, and I became a Red Sox fan, and would only collect Wade Boggs and Roger Clemens and a guy named Mike Greenwell, and so I was a huge Red Sox fan as a kid.
Where are those cards now?
Well, they're in my garage.
Do you collect MLB NFTs now?
I do. I sort of have to, right?
Do you do it because you want to, or because you have to?
Yeah, no, definitely I want to. I mean, there is a whole psychology in collecting. There's definitely pros and cons to what that obsession is, and to what that says about you, and why you do it. So we can get into that, and that could last a couple hours, right? And to a certain degree, we think about that. Our core mission is to celebrate the fan's experience, to get him or her or they figure out a way for them to feel even closer to that team or that player or that artist than they could be otherwise.
So it sounds like, do you think most of your market or audience is coming from the traditional fan bases of those kind of categories, the MLB fans, the NASCAR fans, or is it what do you think the split is between the original fans and people that are interested in collecting NFTs and are choosing this as the type that they're going to invest in?
Yeah, it's a great question. That question, I could answer it very differently now than I would have, let's say, 9 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking in February of 2023, where the market is definitively down. We're in what's called a crypto winter, right? Or a NFT winter, or what have you. 9 months ago, I would say that there was a large percentage of people who were buying NFTs, buying baseball NFTs, MLB ones, speculatively for a quick flip to make money. And a lot of people made a ton of money doing that, particularly with our cards, our digital cards. We, Candy, I would argue, at least I'm speaking for myself, maybe, I'm much more interested in the fan who is purchasing our product because they're a fan and they like what we've created.
They really care about the content.
They care about the work. I think one thing that separates Candy, and obviously I'm biased, from another NFT creator, is we do put a hell of a lot of work into every single product that we make. And that's another reason what we hear back from the customer base, the users, is that's what they appreciate. And that's the reason why they keep purchasing or keep coming back. Right now, NFT is a bad word. It's definitely
scandalous.
Yeah, it's definitely got a bad rap right now. Maybe appropriately so. I don't think so. I think at some point NFT is going to be recoined, rebranded, because it does have so much baggage right now. Our world is going progressively more and more digital. If we can agree to that, then we can clearly say that, okay, we need to figure out a way to have some sort of ownership and way to authenticate what is real, quotes, and not in the digital space. NFTs give you that. There's a lot of people when NFTs were hot, let's call it 2021, and really took advantage. And that's what's going to happen to a probably new tech like this.
Of course, yeah.
The good news is that this crash, you can call, has I think wiped out that. And so if you talk to a lot of people who are really enthusiasts and evangelists of NFTs, they actually welcomed this crash because it cleared away all of the garbage. And so the people who are really in it to win it, the people who are really in it because they see the vision of the long haul, are sticking around and really seeing this as a cleansing moment in a good way.
Can you kind of verbally illustrate for us like your favorite product that you've helped create, just for maybe those that are listening who can't imagine what an MLB NFT is?
The one that comes to mind, I think the most for me just right now is we did an NFT with Richard Petty. So arguably the GOAT of NASCAR.
And you met him?
Yeah. So this is pretty cool. So he was totally on board. He didn't quite get it until we said, well, take a physical diecast car on your phone and combine them, and now you have an NFT. Diecast cars in NASCAR world is the equivalent to a baseball card. Collectors collect diecast cars and they have the drivers sign them, just like a baseball player would sign a card. So we took some of his historic photos. We partnered with a photographer, Don Smile, who had a collection of photography that no one had seen before. This was unarchived footage. And we took those photos and made really beautiful cinemagraphs and had a digital signature on them. At the same time, we then interviewed him and took sound bites from the interview, paired it with the cinematograph and his digital signature, and I think produced 100 of those and sold those. Now, you also had the opportunity, if you bought one of those NFTs, you were then in a, let's call it a raffle, and you got to then print it, a signed physical print of that image.
That's cool.
Yep. And then also one lucky fan was actually able to, we then auctioned off, we did a digital bust. So we sculpted Richard Petty in the likeness of Richard Petty in his iconic Stetson hat and shades.
Did you 3D scan him to do that?
No. So we could have, but we didn't. We actually did it from scratch. brought in a really talented modeler who specializes in the likeness of celebrities. And basically the digital bust, did a 360 camera move around that, rendered that in this beautiful petty blue metal. Mm-hmm. Also paired that with some footage of the interview and sold a 1 of 1, which means it's a one version of that ever was minted on the blockchain. And the person who purchased that through an auction then was able to meet Richard Petty in person and do a drive-by with him. Which is to say, like, the reason why I like that so much is because not only is it a nice example of, digital and physical.
Kind of multimedia in each.
Yep.
It's experiential also.
It's experiential, but also, like, one of the most important things to us at Candy is that it really tells his story. So everything we're trying to do, we're trying to imbue storytelling that makes these movies or JPEGs or whatever it is even more meaningful. The misleading thing today, and maybe the reason why a lot of people don't like NFTs or are suspicious or what have you, is that they think of NFTs as a dancing monkey or a 2D drawing that their 2-year-old drew. But in fact, NFTs, the way that I've heard them described, which I really like, is you can think of them as a pointer. Now, whether that points to a JPEG or a dancing monkey, or to a website, or to a ticket, or to entrance into a theater, or to whatever you have digitally, it just points to it and authenticates it. And if you think about it in that respect, then an NFT can be literally anything. And that's pretty darn exciting. Now, the tech is not there yet. And we're still trying to figure out, like, that's what really attracts me to the space we're in right now, is because we are on the forefront of seeing what's possible.
So this is a Web 3.0 kind of question,
this is definitely
right?
Web 3.
What does, in your definition, what is Web 3.0?
Yeah, let's start at the beginning. So Web 1.0, let's call it, like, the 90s, what have you. That for most people is when the web was read only. So you would go to a site, and publishing was the best metaphor and the best way to bring content to the website. And that became Web 1.0. It was just read only.
So you looked at dirty pictures.
I think you're speaking for yourself there, Mr. Grosser.
He's projecting.
He's definitely projecting. It was read and look only.
Right.
Web 2.0 is, let's call it like the early mid 2000s, where you could then read and write. You could post, you could generate your own content and put it up there. Revolutionary for a lot, particularly, for people who wanted a voice and an audience. And so Facebook, Google, Instagram, Twitter gave them a platform. The problem with that is that those 6 companies really dominate and own the internet. We are their product, right? We don't own it. So when I post a picture to Instagram or what have you, like, we don't own that anymore. It's then the property of theirs. And that's why it's free, right? It makes sense. Web 3.0 is read, write, and own. So what it proposes to do is allow a mechanism for you to get Facebook out of the way, or Instagram or Twitter and what have you, and share your work and have an instant connection to your audience, bypassing that. And that can be done through a token. So an NFT, a non-fungible token.
So executives at the large tech companies, Meta and Google,
yeah,
they're nervous.
Oh, I would assume so. Maybe not now because NFTs, no one likes them, but early in the NFT days, people said, "Oh, this is going to be awesome for games." Because the cool thing about NFTs is what's called interoperability. They're not owned by any platform. So think about buying a skin in Fortnite and being able to take that skin to a different game. It sounds awesome. but it doesn't sound awesome to Epic Games, right? Like they own that platform. They are centralized. They're not decentralized. They're centralized. And so it's in their best financial interest to be closed off, which is completely antithetical to Web3. And so that will always be that push and pull with Web3. I think if I'm Zuckerberg, yeah, I think it's going to be eventual, but they're going to fight kicking and screaming to prevent that.
In Web 2.0, everyone's a creator, right? I would say it's empowered people to be their own creators. So, I just watch my kids. They're infatuated with YouTube and they want to be like, and they spend their time, like, I guess, play, they all have play dates and make like pretend YouTube videos. It's, so it's really a kind of move to a consumption to a creation kind of flip.
Yeah.
So in Web 3.0, does that continue or what happens with this kind of paradigm of the creator and the consumer?
Well, it definitely continues. And I think that's a pretty cool observation. Here's the nuance to that is that when your kids are using YouTube, they are abiding by YouTube's rules. And so YouTube is helping them build their audience. But the moment that YouTube deems them not appropriate or has too much of an audience or wants to do anything with their content, YouTube has every right to do it. They're at the mercy of YouTube. So what Web3 proposes is that you get rid of YouTube and you actually have a one-to-one relationship with their fans. It's now decentralized. And what's even cooler than that is if their fans had a token, an NFT to their podcast, they can then decide the scarcity amount of those tokens. They can say there's only 100 of these, or there's only 1,000 or 1,000,000. They can say that the first 10,000 that purchase these tokens have this a loyalty structure. They can then reward those utility or those owners through digital means, whether that's an email or a private Discord channel or in real life experiences. And in order to get into those in real life experiences, you would need to be an owner of the token. And to a certain degree, that's how bored apes have really become, or were, maybe they still are, so incredibly valuable, is because of that exclusivity that they carried with them. You're basically invited to very private parties that were awesome. And you can only get into those parties if you were a Bored Ape owner. Right.
Maybe one of the challenges or question I have for you, and to use a metaphor of like photographs.
Yeah.
I think about my mom, would have photo albums where she would print out the photos and then you would flip through her wedding, us as young kids. And now we have, obviously, photos are digital. They come from your phone. And yet I'm not sure that we have that experience of, it's almost like it's so easy to store that we almost lose them a little bit.
Yeah.
How do you not lose all these photos? Like, I don't know. How do you not get lost in the digital noise?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I have the solution to that.
Come on, Joe.
You're a smart guy. Come on, figure it out.
But what you do bring up for me, which I think will eventually be one of the possible killer apps for AR, is the ability to pin a digital image to a wall and have that be permanent, quote unquote, right? So the day where AR is collectively part of our world and part of our working day, where anyone that has a pair of glasses that look just like these has the opportunity to opt into that world, we'll maybe call it a metaverse, and be able to go into someone's space and see those digital photographs either come alive or flip through carousel or be talking back to them. That, I think, is when particularly NFTs, are going to be commonplace. There's no doubt in my mind.
So you mean as soon as the metaverse is more
Pervasive.
popular,
Yes.
pervasive,
Yep.
good word.
Yep. So, there is a part of digital collecting which is surrounded around apparel. And, we've seen the infancy of tracking, right? So you go on Snapchat and what have you and put on a filter and put on glasses that match your hair or change your hair color. And it's pretty darn good. So think about what that's going to be like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. It's fairly agreed upon through most people working in this space that at some point, when a pair of goggles that controls what you see, you will be able to, at the flip of a switch, turn me into Bono and look and even speak and act like Bono, but only with a pair of glasses on, right?
Do you think when we're at that place, everyone will just be walking around in like neutral outfits because what they wear will be what's, seen through the goggles or the glasses?
I don't. I don't. I mean, that is definitely a trap to like kind of fall into. Is like my point of view is that it'll always just augment what we have. That it won't ever become completely reliant on AR or whatever it is at that point, whatever digital is. I think there's always going to be a combination.
Hybrid.
I think that's where it becomes most successful.
Yeah.
I think as look, I'm, for better, for worse, fully immersed into the digital world. As much as I wish I was more tactical and had physical stuff that I could touch and feel and throw, everything that I create today to make a living is completely on a TV screen or a 2D screen right now. It'll change at some point. But I do firmly think that it'll always be augmenting what we are already experiencing. I don't see a world where we'll be happy being completely in a VR world.
A lot of what you're describing when you were detailing the NASCAR NFT, a lot of these things are still kind of engaged with or enjoyed through, as you mentioned, like through a screen or somewhere in-person prints, physical. Do you see anything in the works, or what are you excited about as far as once it doesn't have to be tied to a technology we have right now or something we're used to?
Yeah. So the answer to that, once again, my knee-jerk reaction to that is it comes down to how we can tell a more compelling story. When we worked with Netflix and we did a campaign or a drop with Stranger Things, we produced and executed a ARG, an alternate reality game, which basically meant that we embedded hidden clues into a series of drops and posters. And in conjunction and based on the running narrative of Stranger Things of the season. And so fans were invited to participate by solving clues and literally going to a site and using the light bright, which is a prop in the series, to create an art piece that if they did it perfectly, it then got them into the next chapter and what have you. And you earned NFTs by doing that. And so you might ask, well, why would you want to do that? So first off, it was a way for a fan to flex their fandom, to say that I love this show so much that I was willing to spend a couple of days trying to figure out this code. It also got them invited into a Discord channel where they were able to meet other fans and talk about the show and talk about the next code. And as the game developed, we saw literally in front of us fans working with other fans who they just met through the Discord, working on the puzzles. That to me, like that's really special, right? if you take that another step forward, which no one today I don't think has done this yet, is let's say that instead of us doing this campaign after the show has been dropped and made, that we're producing NFTs as the show is being made or as the film is being made. And so a fan would be able to get a token that in some ways would influence how the narrative plays out. So if you think about it with episodic TV, the rate and the speed that TV is being produced, I think that would be pretty darn cool. If a show was released every few weeks as opposed to one drop with all 20 episodes or 10 episodes, you drop one episode 1 month and then you wait another month and then another month. And in the meantime, the fans are deciding how the story's played out through
choose your own adventure.
Yep, through their tokenization.
I think they're starting like some shows you can now watch in different order, correct?
You're right.
And the narrative changes based on the order that you...
Right. But I would argue that's a very singular moment, right? That's just one fan having their private experience.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm talking about is a collection.
So the community shifts.
The community. Yep.
Shifts the narrative.
Yep. So it would be, arguably very Web3 like, right? Because it's more decentralized. It's not one center organization deciding how the script. There's multiple people that are allowed to decide.
And again, we move from consumers of entertainment to partial creators of entertainment.
And owners.
Yep. So that's pretty straightforward. And if you can get really excited very fast thinking about like someone like Netflix or Hulu or something like that's creating content. When you talk about sports, that gets pretty exciting. Right now, we have these three platforms, three products. We have an icon, which is literally, think of a baseball card, but on steroids, because it includes a movie of the player. It includes a 2.5D fly through, and it's arguably quite sexy in its graphic treatment and such like that. Then we have we call them highlights, which are basically a clip of that player or that team for that day. And then we have tickets. And so let's say you're at a baseball park and you're seeing the Red Sox. I'm actually a Dodgers fan now, but let's say you're playing the Red Sox play the Dodgers, and you're there for a pretty cool milestone. Someone hits their 150,000th home run. Well, now you have a NFT of that ticket. So now you have a proof that you were at that place for arguably eternity. And then let's say a certain amount of those fans are, and then you'll say you also have that player's icon. You can then pair those together. And then you take a picture with your son at the ballpark. You can take that picture and also include it into that NFT. An NFT can build. That's the really cool thing about these digital collectibles.
Like a time capsule.
They're time capsules. They're little like passports that contain your journey. And they're also dynamic. They're never static. So, which again, back to my original point of like, today, most people think of NFTs as that JPEG, when in fact the really exciting NFTs are anything but a static one image. They are much more elaborate.
To ask a difficult question, when we sit here talking, like you have to like kind of focus on what you're saying and like imagine these scenarios, right?
Yeah.
How do we get to the point where the average baseball fan that doesn't want to imagine these scenarios just experiences it? It becomes as like intuitive as collecting a physical card, which is quite easy to do. So what's it going to take? Is it technology? Is it just, we'll just start to absorb it? What's it going to take that the average fan, this makes complete sense?
So if I knew that question, I think we'd probably be making a lot more money. I think everyone would be making a lot more money. I do think there is a parallel that I've often said about AR and VR, right? It's like when the websites, I'm old enough to know what it was like to, feel what like Web 1 was, or 1.0 was like, right? Where like, you scroll and there's more content down here, or, the pages are always up here, or underline means it's hyperlinked, right? A blue type with an underline, like that means it's blue, right? So some of these things we now take for second nature. Like we take it for granted. That's like, it's completely obvious to us.
We had to learn that though.
We had to learn it, right? And much like AR, whenever I put a headset on someone that has never played with AR, they typically stand in one place. It's quite funny. And until you actually grab their shoulders and move them around and they give them that liberty, AR is not about standing in one place, but it's about moving around the space. And it's gesture control. You can bloom stuff and you can grab stuff and pin stuff over here. And there's a toolbox. What's up there, right? Like we're so used to this 16:9 box to look at things. AR is much like websites were. Okay, so now fast forward to NFTs. I think at some point NFTs are also going to have that, where it's going to be sort of second nature. I'm going to see a show. I need to get that NFT.
My mom was making fun of my father because he tried to pinch to zoom a physical map.
Yeah.
So there is already this kind of some of these new things.
I was going to say, you see kids do it all the time.
Yeah, like 1-year-olds are trying to go like this on a magazine.
Right. They're like, it's broken.
And so I was going to say, I think that the adoption curve for tech is only getting faster and faster, like with each generation. So
I suppose it's super generational. Because if you talk about the metaverse,
because I think
our kids grew up in the metaverse, whether it's Roblox or Minecraft, they're already socializing in virtual space. Like it's completely 100% normal to them.
Yeah, it's not as challenging or surprising to grasp.
And their digital identity is also, a given, right? So they're also going to be growing up and come to an age where they're going to have a digital presence, and they're going to want to flex, quote unquote, right? They're going to want to have an identity, and how they show who they are is going to be intimately tied to their authentic things or visual cues that they give. And so NFTs give you that opportunity to say, yes, this is my Red Sox jersey, and it's a 1 of 30 that they gave out at that game that I was at, and I have number 1, and I wear it in my digital presence.
One of my friends said, their dad had bought an NFT, and it was like a still image. I can't remember what it was, but he just bought a TV to show it all the time on the wall on the TV, which I think is kind of funny, going back to what we're saying about we're still in this in between where, people are adapting things to fit current technology. And it's sort of a funny mix of tech. And it's like, we're just so familiar with photos on the wall or paintings. So now I'm going to put this digital painting on a TV on the wall,
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there is a whole little cottage industry of devices that show digital objects. We have a partnership with a company called Infinite Objects, where you can, quote unquote, print your NFT, but instead of a physical sheet of paper, you now get a physical, beautifully done acrylic encased LED screen.
Do you like that? Like, do you think that's cool, or do you think that's going backwards almost, or
I wouldn't say backwards.
doing the content justice?
No, I think it gives it justice. I wouldn't say it's going backwards. Am I greedy to have it be something different? Yeah. But we've done a pretty cool job of giving some of the really talented baseball players one of these Infinite Objects. And as they unbox it and pull it up, they quickly get it. And to see
it still has impact.
Yeah. And to see, I can only imagine what it's like to be a baseball player, growing up as a kid, having a collection, idolizing these players. And now you're a baseball player and you have your own baseball card. That's gotta be something else, right? So for these guys to film them open these boxes, and we do it for marketing, and then open up and hold one of these things and see them come to life and see this play that's been recorded, memorialized. I think they totally get it and they're totally bought in, right?
I suppose part of collecting is the hunt then. And so how
It's
does,
still
in this
limited
digital
edition,
world, how
yeah,
does the hunt
and all
work?
that.
Yeah. So for MLB in particular, you purchase a pack just like you would purchase a regular baseball card pack. So it's a blind pack.
Uh-huh.
And then you get a certain amount of cards.
And you hope.
That you hope. Now, what's also new and revolutionary with digital baseball cards is that you can instantly then go to our secondary marketplace and buy more cards or sell the ones you don't want within seconds. And there is infographics and visual data charts that will show you what's the most expensive this card sold for, what's the cheapest this card sold for, how many others are trying to sell this card. And so you quickly see the value of that card if that's something you're interested in.
Who's deciding what cards, which stars end up in which packs? Is it an algorithm? Is it you, Joey, behind a computer?
It's definitely not me.
It's all Joey. Blame Joey if you're unhappy with your pack.
No, it definitely is randomized.
It's randomized.
It's definitely randomized. Yeah, I know that for a fact. And one of the drops we did last year, randomly, we gave out 8 tickets to the World Series. So if you pulled a pack, and what we did is we intentionally made this opportunity only for the bottom tier of the rarity structure, right? So when you get a baseball card, there are 5 tiers. It goes from, core to uncommon to epic to rare to legendary. And as you go up that spectrum, there's less and less of those cards. So, a core, there could be, 1,000.
And this language, core, epic, legendary, that's across all collectibles? Because I think I've heard my kids talk about Pokemon cards in a similar fashion.
To a large extent, it's shared amongst a lot of collectibles.
Okay.
But like Pokemon epics might be slightly different than Candy's epics.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, these are common terms used for that rarity structure. Legendaries at the very top, the pinnacle, typically denote a 1 of a 1. So when you get a legendary, that is a legendary. That is, you're the only owner of that. And typically with a legendary, it automatically comes with a physical reward. So when someone pulls a 1 of 1 of Shohei Ohtani, he or she or they are going to get some sort of jersey or signed picture or baseball or something like that from that player. I think the other cool thing, I don't know if I completely buy into this. I guess I do. Is that digital baseball card's never going to get bent. It's never going to get water damage. It's never going to get oxidized, right? It's digital.
Or be a little bit off center.
Or be a little off center.
Misprint.
Sometimes we actually joke about doing intentional accidents.
Do some little
cracked glass or something like that,
I looked at my baseball cards recently, and if it was in the center in perfect condition, it was like $15,000. But because it was a little off center, it was like $4. I was like,
yeah,
this is bogus.
I have so many comic books that way. I have X-Men that would be worth, I'd be able to pay my kids college, but they're worth pennies because they're a little tear or a rip or, got too much sun on them. Yeah. So, I think there's something to be said about that. The reason why I think I bump a little bit is because I still do respect the physicality of stuff, right? I still do respect that. Now, do I want both? Heck yes. And that's why I'm still, really excited about what I do.
Is there anything you're surprised hasn't changed faster? Like you were part of the team helping market Oculus, you mentioned.
Yeah, and HoloLens.
Yeah. Are you surprised it's not, more commonplace, or that there hasn't been a cheaper version created that everyone's using for work or anything else? Is there anything in technology you're just like, how has it not been made faster?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes and no. I follow the news that comes out on how HoloLens, Magic Leap, Snap's, Oculus, Facebook's attempts, Meta's attempts to get a device out into the world. And, as you said, I was on the ground level of marketing the HoloLens from, their initial release, and helped make over 24 video documentaries of industries using the HoloLens, whether it's Volvo or medicine or education. And there's these incredible applications that were using AR in profound ways. And you're seeing that still, not on the spectrum that we all anticipated. And that has to do with the hardware not being where it should be, right? There's limitations. There's form factor. There's having a battery that doesn't heat up when it's on your head. So typically they're not for HoloLens, but for other devices, they're placed on your belt. There's the optics, the field of view. Back when HoloLens 1.0 came out, your field of view was, something like this, and Magic Leap was a little bit better than that. Let's see when Apple comes out with theirs, right? I think a lot of people are betting on Apple's device. I am.
You're like, by a lot of people, I mean me.
Yeah. And I think when they crack that nut, I think, if there's anyone that has the resources
to make everyone want it,
the design chops, yep. It's going to be Apple and Meta, they're still in it to win it, right?
I think it's the psychology of the hardware too. Beyond the technical limitations, people don't want to wear goggles really. I think we found that with Google Glass and other wearable technologies is people, I mean, my opinion is when these become more inherent to our phone or maybe to us as an individual, I think it'll be absorbed much faster because I think there's a big hesitation about, if it feels foreign, people will think it's foreign. There's a psychology of it, at least, and accessibility to the hardware that needs to happen, I think, before it would be totally absorbed.
Yep. You use your phone for 3 things. You use it to make calls and answer your phone. You use it to get as a device to get on the internet, checking your mail, checking browsers or something like that, right? Purchases. And you also use it as a camera. Those 3 things. You conceivably will be able to do all 3 of those things with a pair of glasses that look just like this within a couple years, maybe 10, something like that, right? The way it's going today. When that happens, I'm not going to want to carry this thing around. If I can make calls by double tapping, and it doesn't even need to be an earpiece, I can hear it through a speaker that Apple's invented or Meta's invented. I don't know.
Bone conduction,
and then I can tap here, and I can the website's not this small, but this small, and then I can take pictures with my phone, my glasses. Then I said there's then it becomes not a need, not a want, but a need. I need to have these because I don't want to carry this thing in my pocket. I'm tired of breaking and dropping it.
Of a designer of physical things, it makes me nervous that we'll be in a completely digital world.
Yeah.
And I do think that there are these tokens that will always want to, and maybe it is your glasses. And so you can touch them and just that'll be enough. We talk about our identity, or we, give people signals through physical things, not only digital things. And so, but again, maybe it's just because I'm a product designer and I like physical stuff.
Tech is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So, and getting closer and closer to the body. So the glasses do feel like the perfect mechanism to get that out. But on top of that, with cameras, the buzzword that was, early in AR was that the camera's phone, the phone's camera, I should say, the phone's camera was the next browser, meaning that physical things will have a signature to them that the phone's camera will automatically trigger and activate something else, whether that's a browser or an AR piece or an art or an email or what have you. And so if I rename those 3 things before, like the making calls taking pictures, going on a browser will automatically be in the phone. So as we're walking around, if we opt into it, the camera will always be tracking and looking for markers, QR codes, but QR codes in the future that will then prompt us and be a call to action of what we want to do with that trigger.
Are you a sci-fi fan?
Look, I mean, I'm a sucker for a good Black Mirror episode. And I think those are brilliant. Now, almost all of them are fairly dystopian, which I'm more of an optimist. But Black Mirror for me is the epitome of seeing how tech and culture collide.
Speaking of, optimistic and dystopian ideas, like I think we're getting more and more distant from the physical footprint and impact of all this data, of digital files. You know, we talked about all these photos on your phone, about how dynamic these NFTs are getting, and that takes up space somewhere where all the servers are.
Yeah.
It does have, an impact.
Yeah, there have been a lot of advances in energy consumption that are minting NFTs. So I wouldn't be the best person to talk on that, but it was clear early on when there's a lot of brands, they're about to dip their toes in the NFT space, then quickly saw the backlash about how destructive for the environment just doing NFTs were, took their foot out. And so a lot of those entrepreneurs and developers realized that they had to fix that. And they have made strong strides in addressing that. So, those like whether it's gas fee or the amount of consumption that energy to make those, that has been addressed. I don't think that press is getting out there, and maybe it's not widely known or needed to talk about because there's other issues. But that is, I think, something that's also going to be quickly figured out.
Maybe a good part two. You can direct us to the right person to interview for that.
Yeah.
Because I think that is a part of, like you said, it's come up a lot in the media, and it's something that a lot of people,
without a doubt,
skeptics point to, definitely.
Sure.
All right. So we're almost out of time. We should wrap it up. We always do kind of the same questions at the end here.
Okay.
So what's something that's inspiring you outside of technology?
Music. I've always gone to music for inspiration, since I was an 8th grader, and discovered, music as something that was transcendental and so powerful and could make me, emotionally moved. And so that's whether it's, running or working or driving, I'm always trying to listen to music and be inspired by it.
What are you playing lately?
What am I playing lately? That's a good question. Well, lately, U2 has released their new album. Although I'm not so happy with that.
I bet Cory could have called that.
Yeah, the 2 tracks.
Big surprise. Be surprised to everyone that knows you.
Shocked.
But who else am I listening to? I actually really enjoy the Spotify's Discover Weekly. And believe it or not, I'm actually more of a indie rock guy. Dare I say sad dad rock. And so
hashtag sad dad.
Hashtag sad dad. So The National is on my playlist a lot, and a few of the other bands that I used to listen to in college. Seam and the Spinanes, and Sunny Day Real Estate, all these other kind of, maybe I guess that's called emo nowadays. I don't know.
Throwback emo.
Yeah.
And what's something in tech inspiring you, if there's anything that you haven't already discussed in our conversation today?
I mean, the no-brainer once again is AI. That is.
I know we didn't even really get to that.
Yeah,
Next time.
We currently look back at what it was like to design before the computer and after the computer. We're right now living in that moment where we're going to look back and say what it was like to work before AI and after AI.
Absolutely.
It is so clear. And it is inspiring. I'm embracing it. My LinkedIn feed is nothing but Midjourney posts. I teach part-time as does Cory. And it's a topic of lots of discussions with my students, how they look to their futures and incorporate the tools of AI. It's a topic of production, even working right now on NFTs. We're drawing a large inspiration off of AI right now. It is clearly going to make our lives in the initial stages easier. Just coming up with, just getting started. Sometimes the hardest part is getting started to get that momentum. Like, I'm a huge fan of momentum. I love momentum. Sometimes it's the hardest thing for me to grasp at. But when the ball's rolling and momentum is going, it's sometimes so easy to finish, right? And so easy to get where you want to go. And I've found that AI has just radically changing the way we're thinking about making things today.
And I think it's really powerful that you started your career with this, you said already understanding the physical and digital twin, or whatever you want to call it, the digital version of what was happening in the physical world. So I think that probably helps to embrace it and see it's, this is just the next wave of that. One of many.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I mean, I think my boss, Shane Small, was talking about this, and he may have been repeating what he had heard too. He was talking about how, during the Renaissance period, when painters were painting photoreal to give like their client one-for-one depiction of them, right, doing a portrait. And then photography comes around and it's black and white. So like, okay, well, I can do better than that. I'm going to paint in huge saturated color, vivid color. And then color photography comes out. And they're like, okay, now as a painter, I'm going to go impressionistic and do large strokes and really show how I can interpret something that a camera can't. And then comes along
Photoshop,
computer-aided CAD, what have you. So there's always been this kind of tug of war between what an artist can do that tech can't. At the same time, the ones that are most successful embrace that tech and just make their skill or their way of thinking or what they want to say even more profound. And so
technology shifts technique.
Correct, without a doubt. And so my advice to students is, look, it's going to be up to you. I don't know the answer, but it's going to be up to you to figure out how to use that tool to say what you want to say, but even better.
How can you be more human than the technology trying to be human?
Yeah. And Shane said, look, it's about bringing emotion into your work. Like it's so clear.
All right. You want to ask the last question that we always ask?
Yeah. What's your bill of materials?
Bill of materials.
Magenta? Go ahead.
You nailed it.
I'm not familiar with
It's up to interpretation. What
keeps you going? What gets you up in the morning?
So I'm an avid drummer. So a pair of sticks would definitely be in my pocket. Embarrassingly enough, my phone is also in my other pocket. I have a pair of keys in my classic Mini Cooper. Well, not classic, but old 15-year-old Mini Cooper.
It's more than 15, I think, isn't it?
It might be more than 15 now. I think in some ways I'm happy with those. I do really like these Japanese pens. Do you know what I'm talking about, Cory? The ones from Art Center, the Japanese
clear
pens.
Ones?
Clear ones. I usually have one of those stuck to me, just in case I need to draw.
How tall are you?
6'4".
Yeah, we got to paint a picture for the, the listeners.
But he's always interested in the smallest car. And I asked him, why the heck do you want that really small car? He's like, because I think the way you put it was because I wish I was small, or I have a fascination with being small. Is that correct?
But I would think
Did I
a
say
small
that?
car
Did I
say that?
just
Right?
makes you feel
Was I
bigger.
saying over a couple of beers? Or when did I say that?
Perhaps. It was a long time ago.
I would think that would make you feel bigger.
Yes.
Time and time again, not feel smaller. Do you feel smaller when you're in it, driving around?
I haven't gone to therapy yet, but there is something deeply psychological about it because I am very attracted to smaller cars. Maybe it's I've always wanted to be a clown. I don't know. I think that's it.
Well, you have the socks.
I do have the socks. Yeah. Yeah. I just need the hair. Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you
There
so
was
much,
nothing
Joey.
clowning around
Yeah.
about this discussion. I
Definitely
feel
not.
infinitely
Way to wrap it
smarter
up.
after listening to you.
I hope I
Joey.
sounded
So,
smart.
Yeah, you totally did.
All right. Cool.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions in the comments.
We'll forward them all to you to answer
Right.
directly.
Joey will have to
Yeah.
answer that one.
What we could do is we could do a Supplyframe token, and it'll be a
Steve.
private Discord channel.
Can we get the
And-
sign off?
yeah.
No, I mean, I think honestly, we should talk to you guys about a SuperCon experience with the Hackaday community because that would be huge.
So what's even cooler than that is technically, I guess, our CTO, our Chief Technology Officer, but he goes under Chief Experience Officer. He knows about Supplyframe. Like, he's a big fan.
Nice.
And so he would drop everything to do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Joey.
You're very
My-
welcome.
Wheels are spinning. There were so many, honestly, a lot of ways I wanted to keep going
Yeah,
the
let's do it again.
conversation.
Let's do it
So
again.
we'll have to do a
We'll do
follow-up.
it again in a couple of months.
Thank you, Joey, for further explaining the growing Web3 space and where its continued improvement, concepts, and applications may hold in the future. And thank you, Cory, for joining me in our conversation. We'll see you on our next co-hosted episode. Candy Digital will be releasing limited release NFTs under the projects and brands it's currently working with, among several other Web3 powered media and content in the near future. A link to Candy Digital's homepage and Joey's portfolio can be found in the show notes. If you like The Bomb, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Supplyframe and Hackaday on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and DesignLab at Supplyframe DesignLab on Instagram and Twitter. The Bomb is a Supplyframe podcast produced by me, Majenta Strongheart, and Ryan Tillotson, written by Maggie Bowles and edited by Daniel Ferreira. Theme music is by Anna Hogbin, show art by Thomas Schneider, special thanks to Giovanni Salinas, Bruce Dominguez, Thomas Woodward, Jin Kumar, Jordan Clark, the entire Supplyframe team, and you, our wonderful listeners. I'm your host, Majenta Strongheart. See you next week.